Okay, Rabbi Tova, this year we like to discuss, as we do every year, some of the halachas of the Dalet Minim for a few reasons. Number one, that in Mitzvah Shem in a few hours we're going to have someone coming into Yeshiva K'dosha and it's going to turn this base medrash into a Dalet Minim shuk. And the guys have to know what this is. The guys have to know what to look for, what not to look for, all these names that they shout out, whatever it is. So it's important for a person to know a little bit of the halachas. Number two, it's also important for a person during Yom Tov itself. Things can happen to your Lulav, things can happen to the Adasim, to the Esrog, that you have to know what's the din. Does it make it puzzle? Is it less lachatchela? What is the din when things happen to our Dalet Minim? And of course, it's even more gishmak when you go to the shuk, for example, as of course everybody I'm sure will do before Yom Tov. You go to the shuk in various places here in Yerushalayim, and you get to see so many gewaldige Yidden spending hours and hours over their mitzvahs. It's really a beautiful, beautiful sight. And especially you get to hear sometimes like some crazy things like Brisker Lulav, and everyone starts to run over there to overlook over there to see what's going on. What's a Brisker Lulav? What's a Hemnuk? What are all these Chinese words? We'll see. We'll get to it. Be'ez Hashem. We'll try to see how much we can get to. We're going to fly. Hold on, put your seatbelts on. We're going very, very quickly. Of course, we should spend a lot longer on these halachas. We could spend, hours and hours on each min by itself, but we're just going to give a rough idea of exactly what they all about. So join us as we start from the pasuk. The pasuk begins on a kartam lochem. Of course, we always start with where the Torah mentions it. On a kartam lochem b'yom ha-rishon, which we'll discuss on the first day. Pre-eitz hod of a kapas tomorrow, but of eitz obvious for arvid nachal. This is the pasuk that defines for us the Dalet Minim. Within this pasuk we have all of the Dalet Minim that we know, and of course the Gemara darshans exactly where it comes from, how it works, and how we know that each one is what it is. Now it's interesting that even though pre-eitz hodor, the Torah says hodor by the esrog, Chazal tell us it applies also to the Lulav, Ravois, and Hadassim. That means the din of Hodor, nice, beautiful, should not only be by the Esrog, but also by the other Gimel Minim. Rabbi, so look at this Medrash. The Medrash says, Kol HaMakayim mitzvahs Esrog al shloisha minim. Anyone that's Makayim Dalet Minim, Oile Leminyan Tariag. That means, according to the Medrash, a person can be Yotze all 613 mitzvahs just by being Makayim the Gavaldige mitzvah of Dalet Minim. The Medrash in Vayikra Rabbah, ha-mitzvah lekachas arba minim, nirin ktanim b'nei adam. It looks like it's a small thing. What's the big deal? I pick it up, I shake it, I'm Yotze, and that's it. Which, by the way, is a sugya b'fnei atzmo that maybe one day we have to discuss. I don't think we've shown that for years. How exactly it works with the Nanuim. How does it work with picking up? When are you Yotze, when you're not Yotze? If you're Yotze once, can you be Yotze again? There's a different shilas. But Al Kapon in the Medrash tells us that a person has to realize the mitzvah of Dalet Minim is very great in the Rabbeinu Shalom's eyes. Right? There's a maril brought down in the B'kur Yaakov, someone that buys an esrog and a lulav, nice ones. Right? Again, Rabbi said in a few hours in Mitzvah Shem. Buy a nice one. Zoiche l'chaya oilam hazeh l'oilam haba. Is zoiche to good in this world and in the next world. Again, it's brought down in the maril in the B'kur Yaakov. There's a heilige Shlach Kodesh as well, that a person that's oisik in the mitzvah of Sukkah, the mitzvah of Dalet Minim, and all of the mitzvahs generally that we have, Behidur Godel, then a person gets a tremendous Hisoyrus, the Rabban Shem has Rachmanis, and the Rabban Shem is Kaviyochel, very, very happy with Klal Yisrael, which is a gewaldiger and beautiful thing. And there's Mamre Chazal going backwards and forwards of all different things. Let's begin. Said in the pasuk, B'yom havishan, or L'karton lachem b'yom havishan. Take on the very first day. So therefore we learn from there that the very first day of Sukkot is the Do'oraisa. The rest of the days of Yom Tov are a D'Rabbanan. Right? Zeichel Mikdash, the Gemara tells us that's the reason why they brought it. Now if that's the case, that means that this year, Tovshin Beidalad L'maisa, is going to come out. That is a D'Rabbanan. Because the first day, if I'm not mistaken, is a Shabbos Kodesh, which means that the mitzvah is a D'Rabbanan all of the days, with the exception of Shitas HaRambam, if you go to the Kaisel. That if you go to the Kaisel, according to Shitas HaRambam, the B'skarov was Medaik this way, that it could be a Yotze mitzvah d'oraisa every single day of Yom Tov, every day of Chol HaMoed, that you go with your Dalet Minim. There were Gedolim that specifically went to the old city, to the Kaisel, with their Dalet Minim in order to make the mitzvah d'oraisa every single day. So perhaps this year, we don't have a Daraisa, so maybe we could be Yotze, Shitas HaRambam by going. But be careful, because if your Dalet Minim are not the way they should be, and you're on the D'Rabbanan level, and you're on a Daraisa situation, you've got to be careful. So make sure that your Dalet Minim are in the correct way, which again we're going to try to discuss. Let's begin, Rabbi Isai, with the Esrog. This, for those people that have never seen it, These pictures, by the way, I pretty much took all of them myself. I spent many, many, many hours in a paradis to make sure that we have good pictures. This is an esrog tree. It grows very, very low. Those of you that were here last year, we were zeicha to go after Shemitah, during Shemitah to go and take our own esrogim, which we picked for free of charge, which is the 1 to 7 years opportunity to take your own esrog. So we saw that it's a very low tree, comes from the pasuk pre-8 hodor. That's where it comes from. And the Gemara brings many droshim to understand exactly how do we know it's an esrog? How do we know it's not a lemon? How do we know it's not an orange? How do we know it's not anything? Right? So those are all different shilas. The main idea that the Gemara tells us is, how do we know that a pre-8 hodor in the Torah is an esrog? Is because it says, the Gemara says, Shadar bi'ilonim mishana l'shana. It stays on the tree constantly, it's always there. And tam eitz, a period of Shavah, which the taste of the tree and the fruit are equal. Again, many different ideas. We could spend a long time on it, but that's how we know it is an esrog and nothing else. Now, there are two types of psulim, which we're not going to go too much into, but just to note, if you go to a rabbi and he says to you, oh, that's chasa, huh? So it means like this. Chasa is only a problem on the first day, which would mean this year, chasa would mean that your esrog, or whatever it may be, would be okay, because we don't have the first day, because it's Shabbos. So if you have a psul of chasa, and again, later we'll see esrogim, maybe we'll talk about it, maybe we'll see a live example of a chasa that could be okay, maybe l'chatchili you shouldn't buy it, but if it happens on Yom Tov, the second day for sure will be okay and onwards, whereas it's a psul in hodor, so then it's actually possible all the days of Sukkot, not only the first day. So the Mishnah discusses in Sukkah, what about an esrog hayavish? Esrog hayavish means it's very, very dry. I don't know if anyone has ever bought an esrog that looks like this, that's rock hard to understand, to see that. In fact, I took a picture of one that I found in the paradise that was half yavish and half fresh. So half of it was mamash fresh, half of it was completely yavish. Obviously, the Mishnah says that's avada going to be possible without any shaila. What do we do lemaisa? Shulchan Aruch says the eitzah is you take a needle with a thread and you put it inside, and if it comes out moist, so it means that you've got moisture inside. Now, by the way, I pointed this out to somebody who's a big baki in Daled Minim, that he was holding an esrog on Yom Tov that was 100% posel. And he said, what do you mean? Of course it's kosher. I checked it before. I'm the expert. So I said, no, you're making a big mistake, right? The pitum is a chelik of the esrog. We'll talk about pitum in a minute. But if the pitum is yavesh, depending on how and where it's yavesh, could make the entire esrog posel if it is yavesh in the wrong place. So a person has to be very, very careful to make sure to store the esrog, not in the sun, because the sun, obviously the pitum is the smallest, thinnest part, which means it directly gets the sun and can become yavish much quicker than the rest of the esrog, which is bigger, which is why a person has to be careful of that area over there. Let's talk about this. Again, all the Mishnah, Shulchan Aruch, we're not going to go through the Marmakomis this time, just this is an idea of chasa. Chasa means it's missing something, which by the way, can happen, right? And do not try this one at home. When you see the esrogim later, or whenever you buy them, don't try to pick off the black dot or anything else that you do, because you may cause a shaila of chasa, which again could be a major problem. Whether it's a machlokas rishonim, as you see, is it because of a lekicha tama? Is it because of hidur nafkamina, if it's apostle all the days or just the first day? But I'll kaponim, be very, very careful when you handle esrogim. It can also happen through the thorns, the Magen Avraham says. That means if you have a thorn that goes into the esrog and you take it out, which is why the people that grow their esrogim spend many, many days and months at the pardesim to make sure that thorns are not touching, because if it is and you pull it out, it could be a shaila of chasa, depending if it's missing or not. All of these shailas could take place because there are thorns that grow on the pardesim. Anyone that went last year with us remembers it was quite difficult to sort of intertwine yourself to make sure you don't get hurt at the same time. But al kaponim, many different shailas come in. There's insects that sometimes attach themselves to the esrog, and therefore it's not really a black dot, but it's more an insect. Now, niklav, also the Mishnah tells us, if it's peeled, it's going to be a problem. Now, what does it mean it's peeled? Nobody peels their esrog, at least before Yom Tov. So what does this mean? So what it means is like this. There are 3 layers on an esrog that we have to know. There's the outermost layer that's like we see, a thin, glossy membrane. Then you've got the green-like circles, and then you've got the actual peel inside. Right, so for example, you've got the actual, the glossy, the shiny part outside, and then you've got the layer just underneath that, and then you've got, of course, the inside over there. So there's a big enough community where you peel the esrog of whether or not that esrog will be kosher or not, depending on what happens. So there is a machlokes, the Mishnah Berurah and the Chazon Ish. As you can see from here, the Mishnah Berurah says the outermost layer is not a problem, whereas the Chazon Ish says that the middle layer is not a problem. He's much more, Chazon Ish is actually much more makel than the Mishnah Berurah when it comes in that case. But be very careful when you take your finger and you slide over one of the dots you find in the esrogim. Don't do it with your nail. Do it with your finger to see if it comes off lightly, or ask someone who knows what they're talking about to do it for you with, an earbud or someone that they know what they're doing. If you take it off yourself, it could be a shaila of niklav. By the way, if you're checking the esrog and trying to clean it, and you start to smell citrus smell, you know you have a problem. And you may even, again, is a different shaila. Whether or not you have to pay for the esrog that you ruined is a different shaila. But be very, very careful when handling esrogim, especially if it's not yours, even if it is yours, because you don't want to puzzle it, of course. Now let's talk about a pitum, because this is a big shmooze, Rabbi say. What is the din of a pitum? Okay? What's this whole idea of a pitum? Do I need a pitum? Do I don't need a pitum? I don't want a pitum because I'm scared, like a 3-year-old child, that it's going to come off. That's what I'm scared about. So let's see, where does it come from? The Mishnah tells us very simple. The Mishnah says, Notla pit masai is puzzle. If the pitum came off, it is puzzle. There's nothing to argue with this Mishnah. Now, anyone that saw the development of an esrog, let's have a look at it a little bit like this. First of all, by the way, not to go into this, but there's a major machlokes rishonim. Where is the pitum? There are those that hold it on the other direction. It's on the opposite side. It's on the uketz. Ganze machlokes rishonim, which we're not going to go into, but just to note that such a thing even exists. Now, there's something called a pitum, and there's a shoshanta. The shoshanta is the stick that extends above the esrog, and the shoshanta is the crown above that. You have to know the difference. Sometimes the shoshanta can be off, but the pitum is still whole. Nafkamina, if it's going to be possible, if something happens on Yontov. Okay? So you have to know as well like this. The shoshanta comes off, it's 100% kosher, no problem whatsoever. If the entire pitum, from beginning to end, comes off so much so that the top of the esrog is now smooth, your esrog is possible. No shaila. Any day. Doesn't make a difference. Here's what most people don't know. If some of the pitum falls off, it means if it snaps off in the middle, what is the din? The halacha is your esrog is kosher. Again, the halacha is your esrog is kosher. However, the Ramah, the Mishnah Berurah, toiv to get another one if you can, whatever. But again, depending on when it fell. So don't be so quick to assume that if the pitum falls off, then it's going to be possible. So that's another reason to get with the pitum. Because even if it falls off, Lav Dafka is going to make it possible. But we'll see, there's another reason Yosef also maybe to do this as well. Let's discuss. If it falls off slightly as well, we have to know the difference. Now, boys, so listen to this. There's a rush, a mayudik rush. The rush brings down, the Torah brings it, Yesh esrogim shaloi hoyo lehem pitmois me'olam. How would the art scroll translate that? If they had a rush art scroll, I don't know. But somewhere along the lines of, there are those esrogim that never, ever, ever, ever had a pitum. That's what it means. That's the art scroll. He never, ever, ever, ever had a pit. And that's the art scroll's translation of this rush. Let's understand for a moment how our esrogim work to see if that's really the metzias of our esrogim. So here we have, Rabbi Isai, an esrog tree starts like that. We move on. You can understand how long I had to spend by the paradox to get all the different stages, right? It starts off like that. Mama's very cute. It starts to open up like a little blossom, like a little flower over there. And then you see something. And I don't know what that is, I don't want to say what it is, but you see something emerging from the flower in that way, and obviously the stage gets bigger and bigger as it starts to grow. You can see it over there. I don't know, that looks like something, like a pitum, maybe, right? That's the esrog, okay? So there we have, look at that. Started to come off at a very, very young age, at a very, very young stage. You can see already that one's half off, that one's got nothing at all. Very interesting over there. That's already the bigger ones that are growing over there. But Al Kaponim, it's interesting, right? You've got the stages of the pitum. What's going on? So, because of this rush, there were gedolim that held that you cannot get an esrog without a pitum, so much so that my Rosh Hashiva, Rab Chaim Pinchas Scheinberg Zatzal, used to say chas v'shalom to make a bracha on an esrog without a pitum. And May Bransdorfer Zatzal, amongst many other gedolim, would say, do not get an esrog without a pitum. Because we see that the Rosh says there are those esrogim that never had a pitum, but these did, and they fell off. So it means it had one, but it no longer does. So therefore, according to many, you should never touch an esrog without a pitum. Came along the Chazon Ish, came along Reb Shlomo Zalman, and Shevet HaLevi and others as well. And they said, hold on a minute. But this is the derech how they grow. You see that they grow, some of them all fall off, which by the way is not so posh. It could be because of the way that they grow, could be because of things that are around it, because of all sorts of different reasons as well. But since they grow from such a young age that they're not even called an esrog then, you wouldn't call this an esrog, it's a little piece. It's not an esrog. So therefore, if it fell off before it got the shame, chalois, esrog, so Mamela, it's not considered. It had a pitum and it fell off. It never had a pitum. Because when it was an esrog, it was already grown without a pitum. So according to that, many Gedolim held that of course it's kosher without a pitum if it fell off at a young age. How do you know that? So this already you have to ask someone who knows what they're talking about. Someone that did Shimish and Daled Minim, not someone that just learnt Shulchan Aruch and knows Shulchan Aruch cold with all the Mishnah Berurah will not help you to know this. Someone that did Shimush and Daled Minim will know very clearly by looking at the Esrog, this one fell off at a young age. How? You have to ask them. They did Shimish for many, many hours, whatever it is. I was Zoicha Baruch Hashem to do Shimish by Rabbi Zil Orbach, Rabbi Montcha Friedland, does that sell. Also, Gavaldig, hours and hours and hours of Shimish that we spent before Yontav going through hundreds and hundreds of Daled Minim. So he showed me what to say in each case. But according to that, there is definitely either a psal or you could say, according to many, there's a huge hitter to get one with a pitum, right? For example, the person that's coming today to yeshiva, so he said to me, should I bring a sroigim without a pitum? I said, no, I'm looking for a sroigim, please. Make sure you bring a sroigim, right? Why would you bring an esrog without a pitum, right? Now, even if you want to say that, no, we have Chazanish, Zalman, whatever, there's no shaila. No one's going to argue. It's much more muhuda. Just to have an esrog with a pitum, a shaina pitum. There's no shaila that it makes a big difference. And we're looking for hoda, we're looking for a hiddah. So l'maisa, I think it's kedai for a person to make sure he does that. Nowadays, they have all sprays and everything that they use also to make sure that it stays on. Different ways that the pitum grow. Again, like I said, Rabbi, so we have to move on. There are ways of checking to make sure it fell off at a young stage. There are different types of pitum. Those that are familiar with the Kaf HaChaim know there's a different types of pitum that we're not got time too much to go into. Nafkamin is where it grows, how it grows, and everything else. Let's move on to the ukutz, Rabbi Say. The other end, the opposite end of the pitum is called the ukutz. Now, the ukutz, you have to know, if it comes off completely, makes the esrog 100% possible. That means if the ukutz falls off, which can happen sometimes, it gets caught, which is why, by the way, if you have an esrog where the ukutz is extended quite a bit, I would cut it. Why would I cut it? Because there's no share for how big the ukutz has to be, right? There's no share. What's enough? There's some Puerto Rican guy in California is going to decide where he cut off the ukutz, and therefore he decides how big my ukutz is going to be. Avadanish. I can cut it off. Okay, you should, so it doesn't get caught on something. If it gets caught on something, it comes off, it's in guns and posel. The ukutz comes off completely as possible. If rov comes off, different shaila. But again, these are all shailas for rabbonim if these things happen. Now there are two types of an ukutz. There's an ukutz that's sunken in, as you see over here, and there's an ukutz that's pointing out as well, right? One of the simonim that they say that it's a kosher esrog, which we'll discuss in a moment, is if it's sunken in, but both of them are 100% kosher without any problem whatsoever, especially if you buy it from a place that's got a good haksha. Now, the Tiferes Yisrael on the Mishnayos brings down that it's a big hiddur to have an esrog that's symmetrical, the ukutz, to the pitum, like that, rather than this, which is 100% kosher. But again, obviously some of that would be more muhuda because you've got the ukutz and the pitum very much opposite each other as much as you possibly can, depending on how much money you are prepared to pay. Here's, for example, here's the ukutz is mamish on the side, it's not even growing at the end, it's growing on the side over there. I took that picture. But upon him, that's what it is. Let's move on. Rabbi says shiri maris, different colors that we have. First of all, there's something called, if you learn the Mishnayos and learn the Gemaras, something called a chazozis, right? We don't really have it. Rashi says it's like a pus that comes out. We don't really have that. But we have spots that generally appear on our sroigim that are actually hard. You put your finger on it, it's a hard spot. Those are 100% kosher. Those are not a shaila of chazozis. I took this picture over here. Simple little bump over there. Again, it might not be as muhudar as one without, but kosher, it definitely is here. I found a chazozis, look at that, all the way running along. There's big bump. Again, 100% kosher, but maybe more muhudar to get one without. Colors. Now this is very, very important because most esrogim that you're going to find are going to have shailas of different colors or spots. Right? There's all different colors that you find on the esrogim. I wish I had time to be Meirich and exactly why and where and whatever it may be, but the idea is black is 100% possible and 100% white. If it's real white, then it's possible. Every other color, depending on the shade and depending on what it is. So you have to start looking for there to see. One of the ways of seeing if it's actually a black dot or it's just a piece of something that just fell on there is, for example, you take a piece of, tack, for example, you put it on, you see if it comes off straight away. Do not do it with your fingernail, because then you do it with your fingernail, you have a shade of niklap or chasa, especially if you feel and you smell the citrus taste. Shinoi Mara, by the way, also is a shade of manuma. Manuma is like a leopard, right? There's a modig tshuva in the Rashba. I wish I had time to be Meirich, of a Sefer that wrote a Sefer Torah, but he wanted to write every Shem Hashem, Hashem's name in the Sefer Torah, b'kedusha v'tara. So he wanted to go to the mikveh. He couldn't go to the mikveh every single time he wrote Hashem's name, because it's going to take forever. So what he did was he wrote the entire Sefer Torah, and then he went to the mikveh, And when he came back from the mikveh, he started filling in the blanks, which for a Sefer Torah, by the way, is kosher, because it doesn't have to be considron, whatever. Al Kaponim, what happened was, because it's such a long process, at the end of the Sefer Torah, you were able to see like a leopard spots, right? All the Shem Hashem were like dark black, and the rest of it had already worn out already. So the Shaila, the Rashba discusses the Shaila, whether or not that's good or not. It's enough Kamina Legabe Esrog, people don't chap that even a kosher color like yellow on a green Esrog could be a Shaila of Menuma and could be a Shaila of a Psul, by the way. I don't want to go into it, but I just wanted to give you the Shaila that could be Negeya. This is very Negeya to many of our Esrogim, and this, by the way, will save you a lot of time when you're looking for an Esrog. And that is, the first thing to do when you look at an Esrog Avada, to make sure it's an Esrog, Pitim. Fine. After you've established an Esrog, you pick it up, you want to see the Giddel, you want to see the shape, you want to see how it's formed, the way you like it, beautiful. The next thing after that is to see if it's actually possible because of a black dot, for example. Very, very common. So there are two things you have to look at. Number one, Roiv, the majority of the Esrog. And number two, the Chaitem, which we'll discuss where that is, but it generally means the top of the Esrog. So, Roiv means that if you turn the Esrog around, and wherever you turn it, you find a black dot, then you've got what's called a black dot. If it's a real black dot, of course, show it to a Rov, then it's going to be possible, because it's on Rov, because you turn it around. Machlokes Mishnah and Chazanish, exactly how you work out the Rov, I don't want to go into it at this moment of time, but I'll upon him, that's what that is. What is the Chaitem? The Chaitem, says the Gemara, is Val Chait Barafidu B'mashu Pasal. On the Chaitem, you find one black dot in one place, even though when you're actually doing the mitzvah, you could turn it around so nobody sees it. And this way, no one sees that you've got the black dot over there. You make sure you hold it in that way so no one sees it. No one knows exactly what I'm talking about. And therefore, on a Maisa, no one will see it. It doesn't make a difference, because on the Chaitem, it's automatically going to be Pasal, even a Mashu. What is the Chaitem? As we can see, major Machlokes, we're showing him exactly what it is. The Maisa, we paskin like Be'esim and Rashi, which is this whole area over here. From where it starts to slope in, that's the Chaitem. So that means the very first thing to look at your Esrog is right here. If you start looking, you see one black dot over there, put it back in the box. Right? You find one over there, so then you have to turn it around to see if you find it on the other side. I've just saved you 40 minutes of your time, you can finish another 2 blat. Let's move on, Rabbi Isai. That's that. That's the Chaitem, right? Where it slopes in. Every Esrog, of course, has its Chaitem depending on how it's formed. Some of them can even go very, very low down. That means this Esrog, for example, has a huge Chaitem, which could be a major enough Kamina to making sure that it's kosher. There's a Be'alacha, by the way, Moedik Shaila. What if you have, for example, Shevet Halevi discussed this also in Chuvas, if you have a Chaitem that starts on different sides. So on this Esrog, on that side it slopes over there, and there it slopes over there, and you find it over there. What din does that have? Okay, Rabbi said, I wish we had time, but we didn't, but just wanted to mention the shine. What about this? What about a double Chaitem? It starts to go in over there, then it goes straight, then it goes a shine a gartel, and then it goes in again over there, right? What's the din over there? Now, to Pashtus, we go with the second Chaitem closer to the Pitim, okay? Let's move on, Rabbi Isai, because there's so much to do. The Rabbi Isai. Look at that. This is Esrog. Did you realize which Rebbe wouldn't? That's Mamish Kavaldik. That's Mamish to shine Esrog. Okay, so you got to look for black dots on the Chaitem over there. Now here's the Shaila. Everyone here is familiar with the Mabit Chelik Gimel Sema Mem Tes, where the Mabit says, how visible does it have to be? Right, you see people spending hours with magnifying glasses on their Esrogim. What is going on over here? Everyone knows. And therefore, a person has to be careful. How long does he spend on it? How far does he have to put the Esrog to him? So you see people, you see Rabbonim, who spend mamish hours. I don't know where this is coming from. I think they're making people too nervous. I don't think it's necessary. If you understand from the Gedolim, right, all the Gedolim looked at Esrogim, they give it a look, weiter. Give it a look, weiter. Right, we say every year the story, we have to say the Maisa, right? The only came to Ramosha, the Heilige Ramosha, the God Ladar, right? There was a line going outside Ramosha's apartment, right? Everyone wanted to get a skoma from the Ramosha about the Esrog. So they came to, you can imagine there were hundreds and hundreds of Esrogim that Ramosha was seeing every single hour, maybe. Mamish, it was like a line going in and out. But it took him Mamish seconds. He took the Esrog, he looked at it, kosher, kosher. Mamish, like second after second, literally, unbelievable. So there was one guy that was sent, one boy that was sent by his father to go to the God Ladar, go to Ramosha to get a head to make sure there's a skoma there from the Esrog. So he went in there. Ramosha looked at it, kosher, next. Okay, came back, Ramosha said it's kosher. No, I need to know it's a mohuda. Nowadays, by the way, this is my experience of sitting by Rabbanim when it comes to these things, is that nowadays people want to know from the Rav, so how much do you think it's worth? How much do you think I should pay for such a thing? He says, well, so Matcha Freelander that was Zoka to Shimish by was like, I don't know, I'm not here to do that. I'm telling you if it's kosher or it's not kosher. How much is it worth? Go speak to the Moich, I'm not a businessman. But Akaponin says, this Bocher comes back, his father says, I want to know if it's Morda. So he goes back to Ramosha, say no, it's again another 2 hours on the line. He waits in the line, Ramosha looking at kosher, kosher, kosher. Seen this one, kosher, kosher. Can you imagine such a thing? Moshe, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Seen this one, unbelievable. Anyway, upon him, the Mabit says that you don't have to hold it far. You hold it, so give it a look, and you go weiter. Okay? So you'll ask me, why taka do people use magnifying glasses? This is a shayla in Yeridei by Hilchos Bugs. It's a shayla for Yeridei, a base also for those people that are married. It's all different shaylas when it comes to these things. So the answer is that when you see something and you're not sure what it is, the magnifying glass is going to help you to decide what it is. But not like the magnifying glass is going to show you that there's a problem. That of other not. So moving on, Rabbi Say, there's something called a blettel. A blettel is Yiddish for a leaf, and therefore there are leaf marks on many of our esrogim. Without going into too many details, a blettel that we have on our esrogim pretty much are all kosher. It may detract from the hiddur of the esrog, because obviously I want a clean one, but it does not make it possible. It's 100% kosher, which is why they spend a lot of time, patience, and energy in the pardesim to make sure it doesn't have that. You can find blettlach everywhere. Again, it's 100% kosher, even on the pitum, but if rather it's more muhuda not to have. Moving on, Rabbi said, what happens in the middle of Yom Tov? A person sees his esrog went all brown. What happened? This is the hiddur for care. I used it for a mitzvah. That's only if I used it for a mitzvah. But if Lamaisa, everyone started handling it and touching it and looking at it and feeling it and smushing it, and that's how it became that way, then Avada not. So a person should be careful to handle his esrog with care. And of course, the Mishnah says if it's round, Lamaisa, what is the din? It's got a din of an ogel. It's possible. I showed this to Rabbi Zul Orbach Shlita, who told me that this 100% is kosher, even though it's got a very round appearance. But since you've got the nice chotem over there, it would be kosher in that case. And of course, if you put it into a jar and it looks square, then ask a local Orthodox rabbi what to do over there. Now, this is a big shayla for Eretz Yisrael. In America, nobody really gets a green esrog. Who gets a green esrog? Nobody wants a green esrog. They want a yellow esrog, because that's what every magazine and every sefer shows is a yellow esrog. So I don't want a green one. In Eretz Yisrael, you're not going to have that, simply because they cut it off much later. The ones that you get in America are cut off weeks and weeks ago. They've gone on the boat. They've been already, exposed to the air. That's why they've gone green. Yellow, I'm sorry. Whereas our esrogim, most of the ones that you're going to find are going to be green. Now the halacha is, the Mishnah says, right, even though it's a machlokes, Rabbi and Rabbi Yehuda, but the Maisa, we paskin that if it's like as green as grass, it's 100% posel, right? Which Rabbi Yashav, by the way, said is not negay come out with any of our esrogim. It means such a deep green, mamish, a deep, deep green. Rabbi Yashav said, come out, all our esrogim don't have this, and then you have nothing to worry about. Now it comes along the Shulchan Aruch and says that the Maisa, even if it's green, but it's going to go yellow, so it's kosher at this moment of time. But the Mishnah Berurah says it's kedai to get one that you can see is starting to go yellow. Those of you that are makpid to go to Meron and like Ba'omer, and you're makpid not to wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed, the makpid to keep every single Reb Shimon Bar Yochai in the Zohar Kodesh, where he brings down that a person has to be careful. Avada, there's a betzah babach al pi Esther Malka, the Purim story, which we're not going to go into. It's dafka a din al pi Kabbalah to get a yellow esrog or make it yellow, which you can make yourself, by the way. For those that don't know how to do it, it takes about between 2 and 4 days here in Yerushalayim to put it into a container like this. You take a red apple, you pull off the stem off the top of the apple, that's very, very important, and put the esrog nowhere near the ukkos, because otherwise the ukkos will fall off after 2 days. And then your esrog will become yellow. There's a shaila in Shaz and Shulchan Alevi and Rabelski Zatzal, if a person is allowed to do that on Shabbos, or is that an Isser of Tzeveya? I have no idea. Let's move on, Vice Rabbi say, because we really don't have time. Right, the size of the esrog, we generally don't have such a shaila, and after there's a hiddur to get an even bigger one over there. Hechsher Rabbi say, very important. Don't go to the street. Right? Just like you guys are so makpid to make sure when you eat something and you order something to make sure that it's mamish a good hechsher, because who wants chas v'sholem to put something into their mouths that isn't of the best hechsher, because it's the mouth that talks Torah, it's the mouth that talks tefillah. So vada we're makpid on hechsher that goes into our mouths. So same thing over here when it comes to daled minim. Make sure, don't just go to the street and pick a guy who's got, it could be he's kosher, I don't know, but you have to have a hechsher that you recognize, or someone that you know is coming from a good place, to make sure that that esrog is coming from a place of hechsher, of kashrus. There's simonim that we could tell the difference. This is a taimani, for example, inside. This is the difference between a lemon and an esrog. Don't try this one before Yom Tov, obviously, because for shteitzak that will make problems. There are different types of minim. There's Moroccan, there's chazanish, there's taimani, there's yanava. There's so many different types. Obviously, go with your minig or go with whatever you can get that you know is going to be a kosher esrog in that case. I did this one myself, by the way. Now, these are all the different types of esrogim. Let's move on, Rabbi. So we have so much more to do. I don't know how we're going to do this. Let's quickly fly through the inyan of lulav, right? The Kapos Tamarim tells us this is a lulav. Very important to make sure you get a lulav, lamav of tzadikim, lamav of mesachtas, mabaisa, there's a yodim like going to the moon over here. When you get lulav is chayim, it's life. When you shake it, the maril, gansazach, right? The shaylim of chasam soifet, there need to be actual dates coming from the lulav. There are, by the way, people that buy lulavim that dafka come from a tree that is actually producing fruit. It's a psenocha hida, the chasam soifet wants to taina. It's definitely not ma'akiv in that case. And of course it grows originally as a stick and then obviously it spreads out its leaves over there. Be very, very careful that you don't buy a canary lulav. A canary lulav is 100% posel, and if you make a bracha, it's a bracha